So good morning, all of you present here. I take immense pleasure in welcoming the guest speaker of this session, Dr. V. Krishnaveni. Dr. V. Krishnaveni obtained her bachelor's in electronics and communication from GCT Coimbatore, ME Communication Systems from PSD College of Technology, and PhD in biomedical signal processing from Anna University. With 2 decades of teaching experience, she has published more than 80 papers in various international, national journals and also in international and national conferences. Reviewer of many peer-reviewed journals, including IEEE Biomedical Signal Processing Journal. Her research areas include wireless communication systems, digital signal processing and image processing with applications to biomedical signals and images. She has been the co-investigator of the project titled Wireless EEG Recorder, sponsored by Department of Science and Technology. She is a life member of ISTE, IE, ACCS, and IEEE. Ma'am, I hand over the session to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Gomati. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. A very good morning to one and all present online for the subtle FDP. And I thank Dr. Meera Devi for giving this opportunity to share some of the nano-wearable sensors in healthcare, whatever I know. And I thank Gomati for a nice introduction. So let me start the session. So just I'm not going to share any research related to nano-wearable sensors in healthcare because I've not done any research in nano-wearable sensors. We have a course on MTech Nanoscience and Technology in our department. We are offering that course. So we have some research scholars working on that and some faculty in our department. So it is out of my own interest. Because I've been working in biomedical signal processing and some design and development of wireless EEG recorder, and it has been the designed technology has been transferred to the industry for further manufacturing processes, and it has been submitted to the hospital for clinical trials also. So out of that, just I'm sharing some of the views. First of all, before going to nano-wearable sensors, some 10 to 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes maybe, I'll be talking on the general nanoscience and nanotechnology. Then we'll see the wearable sensors and nano-wearable sensors and where it is used in healthcare. And finally, whatever facilities we are having in our college for nanotechnology. With that, I'll close my session. So first, nanoscience, if you take it, is a study which involves the manipulation of matter at an atomic and molecular level. And this nanotechnology is the application of nanoscience to develop nanomaterials and devices in 1 to 100 nanometer scale. So it is, we can say that it is 1 billionth of a meter. And if you take nanotechnology, it is an interdisciplinary course where science and engineering get interconnected. There is physics, chemistry, biology, and engineering. So that is nanotechnology. So without the basic science, we cannot do any research activity in nanotechnology or nanoscience. And these are some of the applications where you'll be using nanotechnology in material side, in life sciences, in electronics, in environment, etc. Now, how small is nano? So if you take 1 meter is equal to 1000 millimeter, and if you see the scale between meter and the nanometers, 1 meter is nothing but 10 to the power of 9 nanometers. There is a nanometer is 1 billionth of a meter. So you can imagine how small it is. And there are nearly 2 crore 54 lakh nanometers in an inch. If you want to represent inch in nanometers, so this is the huge number. And the thickness of a newspaper is nearly 1 lakh nanometers. On a comparative scale, if you want to compare a nanometer, so if you compare tennis ball to an earth, so we can imagine what will be the, we can't even compare this tennis ball to an earth because earth is such a huge size and tennis ball is so small that it is a handheld material, right? Or some things. Like that, if you compare this tennis ball to a nanometer, it is like comparing tennis ball and an earth. So this tennis ball will be of very big size when you compare it to a nanometer. So now the hot topic of today is the coronavirus. If you see the size of the coronavirus, it is also in nanometers. It is 75 nanometer in size, but it can range from some 75 to 100, 120. But this is the first sample. That is Indian scientists, ICMR, Indian Council for Medical Research and National Institute of Virology, Pune. This is the first microscopic image of the novel coronavirus, and the image is from the throat swab sample of the first laboratory confirmed COVID-19 case in India, reported in Kerala. So that particle was found to be 75 nanometers in size. And this is from the WHO website, which is taken from the Department of Microbiology. And actually, this is how a coronavirus looks under the microscope. But they have created this in order to show the shape of this coronavirus. It has been created, and we have seen this shapes and figures almost everywhere, even on the roadsides and in posters. They have given this shape. So it is created in the Coronavirus Resource Center in the Harvard Medical College. So this is nanometer. So if you take nanoscale, it refers to structures with a length scale applicable to nanotechnology. That is, it refers to things less than 100 nanometers in size. So this is your nanoscale. Nanoscale, actually, if you take from a hydrogen atom, it is 0.1 nanometers in size. So 5 silicon atoms, it is 1 nanometer. If you take any, just virus, it is approximately 100 nanometers. For example, coronavirus is 75 nanometers. So this is your nanoscale. So normally we represent nanoscale as 1 nanometer to 100 nanometers, but it is less than that also. 0.1 nanometer, you have hydrogen atoms. And this is your microscale, and this is your macro scale. So if you're going to represent your size of the red blood cell in terms of nanometers, it is 10,000 nanometers. So if you take head of a pin, so this is 10 to the power of 6 nanometers. The head of the dia of the head of a pin will be 10 to the power of 6 nanometers, and tennis ball will be represented in nanometers like this. So this is, so you can imagine what will be the size of a nanometer. And that small particles are the small nanoparticles, small nano devices, small nano cameras, small nano robots can be used in healthcare. So these are some of the nanoparticles used in the drug delivery systems: liposomes, silica, solid lipid nanoparticles, polymeric nanoparticles, etc., carbon nanoparticles, which and size is also given here. Now, to clearly understand the nanometer scale, there are various comparisons of natural and man-made things. So these are some of the naturally existing things in nanometer scale, and these are some of the man-made things in nanometer scale. In the millimeter range, we have insects like ant, and human hair is about 100 micrometer wide. And if you take our body cells are in the micrometer range, and DNA ranges from 2 to 10 nanometers. So in the case of man-made nanometers, carbon nanotubes and quantum dots are more familiar in applications. Now let us see this video. This video is a wonderful video. It depicts the size of objects in nature from 1,000 kilometers down to 1 nanometer.
NanoHub.org, online simulation, and more for nanotechnology.
The best way to think about anything that's as small as a billionth is to think about it in
I'm unable to watch video.
I think we understand. So what I want to do
Ma'am, it's not visible, ma'am.
off the web.
One second.
Only the PPT.
Reduction in size.
You can see the PPT?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
We're going down until we get to the size that we can.
Yeah, now it's okay. Ma'am, left the meeting. Just a second. Second participants, I think ma'am is left. She'll be joining again us.
Is my screen shared?
No, ma'am.
Now is it okay?
No, ma'am. It's starting.
Yeah. Can Gomati, can you share this video from there? Madam, can you share this video from there? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. Can you put this link in the chat box, ma'am, so that I will?
Okay, I'll copy that and put in the chat box.
I think if you only stop presenting, I could do it.
Okay, I'll stop presenting. You take this. You can copy this. Shall I copy this in the chat box?
Yes, ma'am. You can copy this and then open. By the way, you can open the browser and you can just put it. You'll be able to.
Yeah, I can share. Otherwise, I'll do it.
Yes, ma'am.
If you minimize your PPT and choose the corresponding tab itself, video will be visible.
Noti madam joined.
Yes, ma'am. Madam joined and then left again, ma'am. I think she wants to open that video. Like there is a problem on that. She joined and then she left back, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, please wait, ma'am. Ma'am will join again. I think there's a problem.
Okay, Gomati.
I think ma'am joined again.
Yeah.
Krishnaveni, ma'am?
I'll put in the chat box.
Yes, ma'am.
You can share it. Can you share this?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Just a minute. Ma'am, is this correct, ma'am?
Yeah,
Online
yes.
and more for nanotechnology.
You can maximize it. Okay.
The best way to think about anything that's as
Second
small
one after that you can share
to think
Yes,
about
ma'am.
it in
when I tell you.
Yes, ma'am.
something else that we think we understand. So what I want to do is to start with a series of pictures that I pulled off the web that show first reduction in size, starting from an area which is 1,000 kilometers, about 600 miles across. And then we're going to go down till we get to the size that we can see with our eyes. And then instead of making things smaller, we'll make them bigger. And eventually we'll get down to the nanoscale. And in order to do that, we're going to have to drop down by 15 orders of magnitude, 10 to the 15th. So we'll start with the southeastern United States, state of Florida. The little red thing in the middle is going to be expanded on the next picture by a factor of 10. So the little red one that fills up the center of this is now the entire picture here. And we've gone from 1,000 kilometers to 100 kilometers across, 60 miles across. We're in Northwest Florida inside that little red box. We'll go down again, 10 kilometers. We're in the state capital, Tallahassee. Go down again, 1 kilometer. We're at the National Magnet Laboratory, which is where the most powerful magnetic fields that you can get at are. Go down another factor of 10. We're at 100 meters, which is about 100 yards. Lakes and oaks. Down to 10 meters, we're in the top of an oak tree. Down to 1 meter, we're in an oak tree. These oaks look a little different from the oaks in Illinois where I live, but they are oaks nevertheless. Go down to 100 millimeters, which is 10 centimeters, which is about 4 inches, and we're on top of an oak leaf. Now, this is the first actual size picture. So we started with a very large view of southern Florida. Now we've brought it down so that it's actual size. All these have been reduced. Now we're going to start expanding, start making them bigger. Go down to 10 millimeters with the surface of the leaf with the central spine coming out and the branches coming off of that. This is enlarged 10 times. Down to 1 millimeter. 1 millimeter is 1/10 of a centimeter, which is about 1/25 of an inch. And you can see the surface of the leaf. You begin to see the substructure in the green part. Then we're going to go down to 100 microns. Now, 100 microns is a particular length size. It's the scale at which most human eyes don't work much longer. I mean, this is the size of a human hair, which is something I don't know a lot about. But if you look on a surface and you put one of these down, almost all of us could see this. Right? You take a hair and you see it on the surface. If you go down by another factor of 10 to 10 microns, most of us cannot see this. Some individuals can, most of us cannot. We're not at the nanoscale yet. We've got a long way to go still. Down to 1 micron, the nucleus of a cell. And the nanoscale is normally defined as lying between 100 nanometers, which is the structure of chromatin, and 1 nanometer. And this factor of 100 is sort of by the definition of the marketplace, what we normally think of as the nanoscale. Chromatin is the way that DNA is stored in many organisms. You see these coiled up worm-like things that in fact fill, for instance, the center of the virus. If we go down from 100 nanometers, which is the largest end of the nanoscale, to 10 nanometers, right in the middle of the nanoscale, you see the double strands of DNA. Okay, so now you're beginning to see the individual molecular subunits at the scale of nanostructures. And so this is an important thing. The fact that from 1 nanometer of individual atoms and molecules up to 100 nanometers, the structure of chromatin, this is the scale of nature. One of the reasons that nanostructures are so interesting and important to us is that this length scale from 1 to 100 nanometers is the length scale of nature. It's the length scale on which we are designed. There are many smaller things in physics, but this is the one that's sort of concomitant with nature. So let's look at some nano objects that actually exist on this length scale. That's a flu virus. He's been magnified 300,000 times. He has beautiful spherical symmetry and so on, but he's a nanoparticle. He's a large nanoparticle. Bacteriophage, slightly smaller nanoparticle. Those are naturally occurring nanoparticles. Here are some artificial ones. These particular ones were made at Chad Bergen's lab at Northwestern, but the point is you see a large nanoparticle in the middle, which is gold. You see small nanoparticles around the outside. Those are also gold. They've been magnified 500,000 times so that you can see them. They're held together by molecules that you can't see, but these are artificial structures that have been made on this length scale. Why is this interesting? Well, we'll get to that later. So far, we're just talking about what does exist on this length scale. And this is the world's smallest abacus. It actually consists of carbon-60 molecules, which are called buckyballs. And they're shaped like a soccer ball, made out of carbon. And they can be moved from one position to another on the surface. And so you can use this just like an abacus. You can move the carbon-60s from one place to another and do adding and subtracting in that way. The one question you might ask is, how do you move these C60s? You clearly can't move them with your finger. You can't move them with the tip of a pencil. So how do you move? You can actually get on the website and move them with your joystick. But physically, how would you move something this small? And that, in fact, is one of the interesting issues about nanoparticles.
Okay. Okay, now we have seen how at 1 nanometer we can see the atoms in. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. You're audible, ma'am.
Okay. So now we have seen the size and scale. There is a walk from a beautiful video from kilometers to 1.
Ma'am, is this two videos to be played at the end of the presentation or like in the middle of the presentation?
No, I'll tell you. The first video we have completed. I'll tell you when to play second, third, and fourth, right? It's all 1, 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay? All right. Now we'll see the history of nanotechnology. Three important pioneers are there in the history of nanotechnology. The history of nanotechnology started its journey in December 1959 by Professor Richard Feynman. The lecture titled, "There is a plenty of room at the bottom of," in Caltech University in 1959. So he told that, why cannot we write the entire 24 volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica on the head of a pin? Then Norio Taniguchi introduced the term nanotechnology in 1974, referring to the precision and refinement of 1 nanometer scale. But after that, it was not used, that the term nanotechnology was not used for some 5 or 6 years. So after Eric Drexler wrote a famous nanotechnology book, Engines of Creation, in 1980, where the perception of molecular assembly was introduced to public. Then nanotechnology has been moving forward quickly since 1990s. So he is the first person, we can call him as the father of nanotechnology. He is called as father of nanotechnology, one of the America's most notable physicists. So he only initiated this. He is the inspiration for the nanotechnology, field of nanotechnology. In the title, "There's Plenty of Room at the Bottom," on December 29, 1959. So this image, a portion of his talk, this image was written using dip pen nanolithography and imaged using the microscope, right, from the Northwestern University, right, from the scientists and engineers from the Northwestern University. They have created this because he told, Richard Feynman told, that we can write the 24 volumes of such huge encyclopedia on the tip of the pin. Right? If you see the size of this L, that is the width of this L is 16 nanometers, it is written. And if you see the size of this D, it is 400 nanometers. It was done by Northwestern University. And Professor Norio Taniguchi, he coined the term nanotechnology to describe his work, that is to describe semiconductor processes that exhibits characteristic control on the order of nanometer. He says that nanotechnology means processing, separation, consolidation, and deformation of materials by one atom or one molecule. But after 1974, some 4 or 5 years, 6 years, nobody was using the term nanotechnology. After Eric Drexler, he explored in depth the idea of nanotechnology as a deterministic rather than stochastic. Before that, it was thought as random. And after that, he only gave a mathematical model for this, his work, handling of individual atoms and molecules. Then he introduced the term nanotechnology to the world in 1986. He was the first person to do his doctoral degree on the topic of molecular nanotechnology. And his thesis was published as Nanosystems, Molecular Machinery, Manufacturing and Computation, which received the Association of American Publishers Award for the best computer science book of 1992. So after that, only a leap in nanotechnology for various applications took. Now, if you take the evolution of technologies, in evolution of technology, still the invention of transistors in 1947 at Bell Laboratories by William Shockley and his team, vacuum tube technology was in existence. After Jack Kilby's first integrated circuit introduced in 1958, then the semiconductor technology took a boom. Then after Eric Drexler's research on molecular machinery, nanotechnology has been moving forward after 1990s worldwide, which will find its application in wireless wearable devices, in healthcare, in nanobots for drug delivery, and in surgical applications in the future. So now if you take the direction of research in electronics, we can say it is semiconductor electronics, or we can say nanoelectronics. So as it says that make the size of devices as small as possible, no matter whatsoever is their current size today. So that is how the research in direction, the direction of research in electronics is going on. Make the devices as, that's why we are having fast devices. no matter whatsoever is their current speed, and make the devices more and more efficient, power efficient, no matter what their power consumption today is. That's how we move forward. The evolution of nanotechnology has started slowly in 1970s, and after 1990, after the Drexler's book on nanotechnologies, his first work on nanotechnology and molecular technology, in recent years, we see that the tremendous growth in nanotechnology research. And nanotechnology is not new. Even in ancient days, there were nanomaterials, but without the knowledge, people were using it. So if you take the stained glass, hundreds of years ago, it was known as art. Now we call it as nanotechnology. Because red stained glass gets its color from the nanoparticles of gold that are only 20 nanometers across. So if you see the gold, it will be having its a golden color, some yellow color like thing. But if you're going to reduce that to nanometers scale, right? If you're going to view that in nanometer scale, the properties, the color, etc. will change. So similarly, orange glass gets its color from gold nanoparticles that are 80 nanometers across. The change in color occurs when during the dimensionality reduction. And you see this Ligorous cup had gold and silver nanoparticles embedded, which made them to reflect different lights accordingly. And even glass had nanoparticles, gold nanoparticles embedded in them. There were strong and flexible swords made of nanocrystalline materials. And if you see this seashells, it had nanocrystalline surfaces which made them very strong. So in the nano world, if you take gold, red, brown, in silver will be yellow, brown, and this copper will be red, brown if you're going to view in nanometer scale. And why nanotechnology? So it has bigger effect. Nanotechnology is involving smaller size, but shows bigger effect. This is because of the unique properties of various nanomaterials used for the processes or for devices or for sensors. If you see the unique properties of nanomaterials, as I told you, if you change the size of a material from bulk to nanoscale, results in profound changes in material properties and behavior. That is, high surface to volume ratio is the unique property of nanomaterials. So if you observe this, this is a 10 centimeter cube, which has a surface area of 600 centimeters squared and volume of 1000 centimeter cube. So if you see the surface to volume ratio, it is 0.6:1 in this in the case of 10 centimeter cube. But if you reduce the size of the cube to 2 centimeter cube, so the ratio of surface area to the volume is higher than this 10 centimeter cube. It is 3:1. So this is the unique property of nanomaterials. As we decrease the size of the materials, the surface area of the material increases. This in turn will increase the chemical reactive sites on the surface. Hence, properties like strength, magnetic, electrical, and optical properties will get enhanced. So in nanomaterials, if you see, there are different dimensional nanomaterials. That is 0D dimension, 1 dimension, 2 dimension, and 3 dimensions. So here, if it is a single nanodots, is an example of a 0 dimension material. And if you take thin surface coatings, 1 dimension, and nanowires and nanotubes come under 2 dimension, and nanoparticles will come under 3 dimension. And if you see, nanotechnology applications have been inspired from biological models. The famous lotus effect, or it's also called as superhydrophobicity, which causes water to bounce and roll off on a lotus leaf. This concept is used to develop waterproof paints and textiles. And if you take the burdock fruit, is the basis for the invention of Velcro, and waterproof glue has been designed based on the mollusks. And nanofibers have been designed from the concept of cobweb. And this is the uses of nanotechnology in a nutshell. So it can be used in medicine, for cancer treatment, for bone treatment, drug delivery, drug development, therapy, imaging, testing, and it is used in information technology, it is used in consumer goods, it's used in cloths, that is textiles, sports equipments, energy, etc. So now we are going to concentrate on how nanotechnology is used in medicine and in particular the wearable sensors. So now some of the medical applications of nanotechnology, in most of the places sensors are used. So the first, these are called as nano robots or nanobots. They are miniature robots that are approximately 1 to 100 nanometers in scale. And they can be used very effectively for drug delivery. Normally, drugs work through the entire body before they reach the disease affected area. But using this nanotechnology, the drug can be targeted to a precise location, which would make the drug much more effective and reduce the chances of possible side effects. And these nano robots are also used to remove the plagues. And if you take human DNA, it is under constant assault from harmful agents such as ultraviolet sunlight, tobacco consumption, and a variety of chemicals, both natural and man-made. There is a need for DNA repair in a cell. But sometimes DNA repair process is not so efficient, but nanomedicine can radically improve it. Cell repair nanorobotics is young, developing part of the nanomedicine. And if you see smart fabrics, which are made of intelligent fibers and yarns using nanotechnologies, sensors, processors, devices for various applications in medical to determine the health conditions. So it can be, it is designed, if you take DRDO projects, they are inviting project proposals like designing of a smart fabric which can be worn by the military people, by the soldiers, so that the health related information can be instantaneously got here, so that some cautions can be taken. And these are the medical applications of nanotechnology, anti-cancer drugs. So this is what the hot field going on. Research is going on in for cardio and for oncology. So in that, we have to see one of the ultimate goals of nanomedicine is to create medically useful nano devices that can function inside the body. So anti-cancer drugs, antimicrobial encapsulation, it is nothing but antimicrobial drugs in nanoparticle systems has emerged as an innovative and promising alternative that enhances the therapeutic effectiveness and minimizes the undesirable side effects of the drugs. So liposome are excellent nanoparticles which can be used as carriers for a variety of drugs. And you have nanocarbon buckyballs and nanotubes also for drug delivery. Because of their spherical shape and their hollow structure, it can be used in for drug delivery. And this biomimetics is a challenging field, and it is an interdisciplinary field in which principles from engineering, chemistry, and biology are applied to the synthesis of the material. Synthetic systems are machines that have functions that mimic biological processes. So this biomimetic designs could be used in regenerative medicines, tissue engineering, and drug delivery.
Ma'am, your voice is not audible, ma'am.
Gomati, can you run this video? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear, ma'am. I'll run, ma'am.
Second video, Gomati.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. This one, ma'am?
Yeah, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
This is from a company, Nanobots. Okay, Gomati, it's fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now we have seen that without affecting the healthy cells, DOX is delivered to the cancer cell. So that is how nanoparticle drug delivery in cancer therapy is used. Now let us come for biosensors. So if you take nanobiosensors, they are usually analytic devices that can detect diseases or by applying biological recognition elements which are associated with a physico-chemical transducer or transducing microsystem, including electrochemical, optical, or piezoelectric, thermometric, and magnetic transducer. These nanobiosensors can be considered as the integrated body between the biological function and the nanofabrication techniques. Nanofabrication techniques play a crucial role when differentiating the transducer and the signal processing method. So they measure the biochemical or biological event using any electronic, optical, or magnetic technology through a compact probe, and it is converted through this transducer and becomes a measurable signal, and finally real-time results are produced. The wearable biosensors. The wearable biosensors, if you see, so wearable sensors can be used for measuring blood pressure, right? Pulse oximetry sensor and sensor for muscle contractions, inertia sensors. Like that can be worn on the body. For example, it can be rings, it can be smart watches, it can be smart shirts or bandages or tattoos. Right, a good research is going on in tattoos. Just it will look like a tattoo, but it will be a sensor. So minute nano sensors are inside the tattoo, which will acquire the biological signals, and it can also be transferred to the base station. So like that, you can have spectacles or some of the wearable biosensors. So it can be made of, it is made of transducer or biosensor reader and a biological element. So the biological element can be an antibody, enzyme, or a nucleic acid. The function of this biological element is to interact with the analyte being tested, and the biological responses are converted to electrical signal by transducer, and we'll have a biosensor reader which will display the results. So now, using this wearable biosensors or wearable devices, constant monitoring of various physiological signals is essential for the advancement for the diagnosis and treatment of diseases. Now, these wearable systems, if you take, they allow the physicians to overcome the limitations of technology, and it provides a response to the need for monitoring individuals over weeks or months. And the data set recorded using these systems are then processed to detect events of possible worsening of the patient's clinical situations, and they are explored to access the impact of clinical interventions. Now we have wearable physical sensors. So like body temperature sensors, which can measure the body temperature and map body temperature or wound healing monitoring. And you have pressure sensors for heart pulse monitoring, voice monitoring, etc. And you have strain sensors for monitoring human motion and monitoring muscle movement, etc. And these are some of the integrated platforms which can be used for monitoring temperature. So depending upon the temperature, the drug can be delivered. Monitoring temperature and drug delivery. It is used as in for insulin delivery, right? It will work as it will work like a pancreas. So whenever the sugar level goes down, very minute insulin will be secreted and it will be delivered directly to the body. So this wearable physical sensors can be flexible sensors, or it can be physically stretchable sensors, right? That will measure and quantify the electrical signals generated by various human activities. And it is becoming popular because of the low thickness, that is ultra thin thickness, and lightweight, high flexibility and stretchability. If you see this flexible and stretchable physical sensors, they are attached on the surface of the organs or skin and can provide a new opportunity for human activity monitoring and personal health care. But to develop, for example, monitoring temperature is okay. That sensor will work fine. And a simple temperature sensor will monitor the body temperature. But if you want to integrate it with a drug delivery, so we have to develop a fully sensored, integrated wearable platform for monitoring the human activity and healthcare. But it is a quite challenging field. So these are the skin attachable sensor patches. So just it can stick on to the skin, and those sensors can measure various parameters like this. It will be like just a paper, a thin paper. It is the thickness of that will be less than that of a paper. It will be like a small bandage. It can be pasted anywhere, and it can be used to measure many vital parameters. So if this research is going to take a boom in all the hospitals, we would have seen in ICU. So many wires will be running from the patient. Already the patient will be very uncomfortable. But in addition to that, you would have seen many wires running from the body to the various equipments connected to measure ECG, to measure EEG, and all those things to measure the pulse rate. if this is going to, this skin attachable sensor patches is going to rule the healthcare industry, then it will be very easy. Just we can attach some 2 or 3 patches right on the patient's body for heartbeat monitoring, for pulse rate monitoring, etc. Then it will be very easy. The skin attachable sensor patches, if you see, can be pasted on the skin, and various functions and can be performed using that. They are flexible products that attach to the user's skin through the use of biocompatible adhesives. And the electronic components of this product, if you see, it will include sensors, it will use processors, and we need, very most important thing is communication element. Because that has to be, whatever it can, signal can be, at least if you're going to have a sensor on the skin, it can acquire the signal, but transmission is a big issue. And upon transmission also, the how reliable the data that has been acquired by the skin attachable sensor patches is a very big challenge. And compared to traditional wearable devices, this electronic skin patches are smaller, they'll be more comfortable and less intrusive for the users. That is what very important. The patient will be very comfortable. And these patches can be designed for single, short-term or even long-term extended uses. Now, these are some of the flexible sensors for skin attachable patches. In the patches, you'll have skin attachable patches. In that patches, you'll be having the flexible sensors to acquire the vital data. So many flexible sensors are designed and developed by School of Advanced Materials Science and Engineering, SKKU University in Korea. They have developed many flexible sensors which can be used for skin attachable patches, and all their work has been reported in various journals. So more in detail, you can refer to these papers. We'll get more idea about what is the operational and what is the design concept. Everything can be found in these papers. So this nanotechnology for flexible sensors. So stretchable electronics or flexible electronics is likely to be the future of mobile electronics. And the applications include wearable electronic devices, and it is used in biomedical uses, or compact portable devices and robotic devices. In future, this graphene is what taking a boom in nanotechnology field. It is likely that graphene will become a dominant material in flexible electronics, and it is nothing but an allotrope of carbon that has superb electrical conductivity, flexibility, and physical strength. And these are the same, by the same SKKU University Korea, some stretchable sensors for skin attachable patches. Those are flexible sensors, and all these have been reported in various peer-reviewed journals, their work. And it is quite interesting if you take one sensor, if you read the technology and science behind it, it is awesome. Now, these are the concept behind the stretchable sensors. If you see, we need stretchable materials and devices. So the material will be stretchable sensing materials, electrochemical electrodes or dry biopotential electrodes, and we'll be having the devices stretchable sensors. And energy harvesting is very, very important. We need not, if you take all these sensors, it should be self-powered. And energy storage devices also. There should be possibility for storing the data, and it need to be transmitted. So this material, device and packaging is very important for designing this sensors. And after that, if it is connected to the body, after connecting it to the body, so some integration should be done so that it is transferred to the base station. And after that, it should be signal processed, that is the noise should be removed. So all those things should be taken care, and the doctors will diagnose and they'll give their opinion. So these are some of the stretchable transparent humidity sensors which can be used for measuring the humidity of breath and to check the moisture of skin And it can as well used for humidity of, to measure the humidity of environment or the humidity of objects, etc. And if you see, University of Toronto engineering researchers have developed a super stretchy, transparent and self-powering sensor. So no need to have from the body itself, it will generate, it will take the power and the sensor will get self-powered that records the complex sensations of human skin. So Gomati, can you share this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, third video.
I think you should stop presenting.
Yeah.
Ma'am, can you kindly stop your screen presenting, ma'am?
Yeah, I've stopped.
No, I don't get. Again, I'm getting. You are only presenting.
It's okay now?
No, ma'am, I'm not able to get.
Stop sharing. Okay, wait, I'll give stop sharing. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
fine.
University of Toronto engineering researchers have developed a super stretchy, transparent and self-powering sensor that records the complex sensations of human skin. Dubbed artificial ionic skin or AA skin for short, the researchers believe the innovative properties of AA skin could lead to future advancements in wearable electronics, personal healthcare and robotics. Since it is hydrogel, it is inexpensive and biocompatible. We can put it on the skin without any toxic effects. It is also very adhesive and it doesn't fall off. So there are so many avenues for this material. The adhesive AA skin is made of two oppositely charged sheets of stretchable substances known as hydrogels. By overlaying negative and positive ions, the researchers create what they call a sensing junction on the gel surface. When the AA skin is subjected to strain, humidity, or changes in temperature, it generates controlled ion movements across the sensing junction, which can be measured as electrical signals such as voltage or current. AA skin is also uniquely tough and stretchable. Our human skin can stretch about 50%, but this AA skin can stretch up to 400% of its length without breaking. The new AA skin could open doors to skin-like Fitbits that measure multiple body parameters, or an adhesive touchpad you can stick on to the surface of your hand. It could work for athletes looking to measure the rigor of their training, or it could be a wearable touchpad to play games. It could also measure the progress of muscle rehabilitation. Another application is in soft robotics, flexible parts made completely out of polymers. An example is soft robotic grippers used in factories to handle delicate objects such as light bulbs or food. The researchers envision AA skin being integrated onto soft robots to measure data, whether it is the temperature of food or the pressure necessary to handle brittle objects.
Okay, thank you, Gomati.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have seen the stretchy wearable sensor. Now coming for the multifunctional skin-inspired flexible sensors, that is, it is not going to, if you paste a sensor that is a skin-inspired sensor on the skin, it will perform multifunctional. Now, if you see this multifunctional e-skin systems, it's also called as multifunctional e-skin systems, and the skin-inspired wearable devices they will hold great potentials in the next generation of smart portable electronics, in healthcare monitoring, in soft robotics, in artificial intelligence and human machine interfaces. This multifunctional biosensors, or it can also be called as e-skin systems, include versatile multi-modal sensor systems, are self-healing material-based devices, are self-powered flexible sensors. To mimic this biofunctions, the selection of nanomaterials with mechanical compatibility is what important factor for wearable sensors. And this applications of multifunctional skin-inspired sensors, if you take it, can be used as smart wearable sensors in biophysical monitoring or biochemical tracking. So now this slide is to show you the contributions by various researchers in the world working in the design and development of this multifunctional skin sensors. I've taken this image from the Wiley online digital library website, but the references given for this picture is what's shown in this slide. So if you can see, the booming innovations in this research field will push the scientific community forward and benefit human beings in the near future. This is what this multifunctional skin-inspired flexible sensors is the next, because if you see in 2018, 2019 also, very many research papers are there in this multifunctional skin-inspired flexible sensor systems. So now these are some of the nano-wearable sensors in healthcare. So printed wearable temperature sensor for health monitoring, connected on the, it is rolled on the wrist to observe the pulse rate. And if you see this tattoo, it looks like a tattoo, but it is not a tattoo. It is a tattoo sensor inspired by the trend of metallic tattoo art. So researchers behind this Bioskin is a software, right? They designed a process for making this gold leaf temporary tattoos that can function like a trackpad, communicate information wirelessly, or change color with body temperature. So because the tattoos transmit data wirelessly and without adhesive tapes, straps and conductive gels, the device could enable patients, athletes, or anyone interested in his own vital signs to monitor himself outside of a medical setting. So now this is what research is going on. If you take this paper, if you take this website and see, it is published in 2018, and much research is going on in this tattoo sensors. And these are the different fields of applications of nanomaterials in wearables. So the first one, if you see, nanofiber-based face mask with thermal management, and clothing with personalized heating and cooling. And this is a heatable glove. So just if you wear it, if you want to heat, it will automatically generate heat when it touches the body. Then you have thermal regulation styles and stretchable heaters extra. And for the nanomaterials in wearables, it's also a recent paper, a review of wearable actuators. So much information is available in this paper. Ma'am, it is available in the online.
Excuse me,
pardon?
Your presentation
Clear? Not? Can you see?
Your presentation is not visible, ma'am.
Okay, 1 second. Oh. I don't know why it's not visible.
I think you stop your sharing. I think you need to present it again. Ma'am. You stopped your sharing, I think.
Oh, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Ma'am, unmute yourself, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah.
Present. We are able.
Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am. Visible, ma'am.
Okay. Sorry, actually the connection is getting lost.
No problem.
then
No
and there.
problem, ma'am. We understand, ma'am. We understand. No problem, ma'am.
So that's why. So you have nano wearable devices in healthcare, starting from electronic skin, smart contact lenses, neutral interfaces, physiology monitoring, and retinal prosthesis. If you take electronic skills, if you see our human skin, it's a large area, multi-point, multi-modable, stretchable sensor. If you paste this electronic skins is nothing but stretchable sensor is what called as electronic skins. Just you can paste it on your skin. It is called a smart skin, which will enable the continuous monitoring of health conditions. It will be quite easy if this research is taking place. And coming to smart contact lenses. So we know that we can wear the basic smart contact lenses like a normal contact lens, and they don't require any surgery, and they can be inserted or removed by the user. They will sit on the eyeball, and they contain the micro versions of the existing technology. That is what a normal smart contact lens will be. But if you take the advanced contact lenses, involves a surgical replacement of your existing lens with an electronic one. And this is one of the most anticipated wearable technologies within the IoT that can integrate your augmented reality, or just you can imagine in future, as Richard Feynman told that why can't we write that 24 volumes of Britannica Encyclopedia on the top of a pin. So your smart contact lenses, finally, if you just attach a lens to your eyes, and if you blink it, it will be it can be mapped to a click in the camera. So that is how the future will be. And if you take the neural, it can be integrated to your the ultimate goal of this neural interface is to create link between the nervous system and the outside world. So they can assist people with sensory or other disabilities of the neural function. So actually, if you see, electrical simulation systems have already reached the clinical applications. This neural interfaces will record the neural signals and the movement intentions. They are beginning to develop into clinically viable systems to help the paralyzed people. And if you see this wearable physiological monitoring systems and decision aids for health and performance, so it's an emerging area and finds its application in defense to track the health of soldiers remotely placed. That health of soldiers remotely placed is what the need of the hour for defense people. And if you see this retinal prosthesis, it is for restoration of sight to patients blinded by retinal regeneration. And many private companies are working on this, and research institutions also working on this retinal prosthesis as per the survey. And this is the personal drug dosage tracking. It can be an app, or you can have an insulin nano pump. When you're going to paste, it is with MEMS, just it can be pasted, so it will directly inject the insulin to your body. It will work like a pancreas. And you have Sproutling wearable baby monitors. Here, just if the baby is sleeping, otherwise we'll go once in a while and check. The Sproutling wearable baby monitor, you can tie it on the legs. And if there is any body movement or anything, immediately an alarm will come to the mom's mobile. And if you see the wearables, a wearable washable stocking, actually in our Nano Center research also, they are developing socks for monitoring the gait of a person. Right? They have completed a sponsored project for about 60 lakhs from DST. And they have completed, they are in the process of completion now. And if you see, the monitors and measures change in the leg volume for patients suffering from fluid accumulation or swelling of the lower limbs. So like that, a wearable socks you can have. This is also, it is called as nano wearable socks. And for optic fibers can be manufactured directly into the textiles. So you can place optic fibers into the textiles so that it can be used as detectors for heart rate monitoring, or it can monitor skin circulation to prevent bed sores. And this is a rubber power plant, flexible material that generates electricity when stressed, and could be used as a sensor integrated into the clothing or even implanted into the human body. For instance, to power a pacemaker, this is a power plant. And Ohio State University is working on integrating antennas and circuits into clothing for the future of healthcare monitoring and treatment. And this is like, as we have seen the nano stretchable sensors, that is skin patchable sensors. This nano mesh skin sensors can be worn on the skin continuously for a week without causing any inflammation. It can measure temperature, pressure, myoelectricity, and even ECG. If you see, this is the skin display, right? The skin display, you'll be having, if you patch that on the, if you place that on the skin, it will just display the ECG waveform. So research is going on in this. It can be combined with a wireless communication model, and the same can be sent to the doctor's mobile or the base station, whichever is available. And this Hexoskin is an industry. So they have developed a smart t-shirt, right, in all sizes for precise health monitoring. In 2013, the first iPhone compatible smart clothing for health monitoring was designed. And they have won several international awards also, which can be used for measuring ECG, heartbeat, heart rate variability, right? And it allows for stress monitoring, breathing rate, etc. So if you wear this t-shirt, everything will be, sensors will be there, and it can measure all these parameters. In 2018, the same industry, they have launched a remote health monitoring system for space. And if you see it will offer 48 hours of blood pressure, pulse oximetry, 3-lead ECG respiration, skin temperature, and the activity. All these information will be monitored for 48 hours. But they have not given any specification about whether it is self-powered or a separate battery should be there. And if you see, this video will give you the about how wearable sensors can be used for early disease detection. This is supported by National Science Foundation, and it is developed at North Carolina State University, and they call this, that laboratory is called as Advanced Systems of Integrated Sensors and Technology, ASSIST. They develop and employ nano-enabled energy harvesting, energy storage, nano devices and sensors to create innovative, battery-free, body-powered and wearable health monitoring systems. So now, can you run this video, Gomati?
Yes, ma'am.
What if a piece of clothing could alert you when pollution, like smog, is about to take its toll on your heart or lungs? That's what's in the air at ASSIST, the Center for Advanced Self-Powered Systems of Integrated Sensors and Technologies.
What if we have a few different platforms on here, one on the chest, one on the wrist?
With support from the National Science Foundation, electrical engineer Veena Misra and her team at North Carolina State University are using nanotechnology to develop small wearable sensors that will monitor a person's immediate environment and vital signs.
One part of the sensor, for example, if it's located on the wrist, can monitor your hydration levels, your heart rate, your EKG, if it's located a little bit above in the arm. The same platform can also be used to monitor the environment. And there we're looking at gases such as ozone, carbon monoxide, and nitrogen dioxides. And so our technologies will really enable that connection and help people make better decisions, and also prevent themselves from getting exposed to toxins in the environment that can exacerbate certain conditions like asthma.
This is the kind of testing we would do. Asthma specialist Dr. David Pete is helping the team test the effectiveness of the prototypes to serve as an early warning system,
so that people could get a real-time understanding of how their personal environment might be affecting their health and be able to say, okay, I've had enough pollution right now and I need to get out of it for a while, or I need to change my activity level.
Misra's team is also developing small nanotechnology devices that don't use batteries, and so will never need a recharge.
Our technologies will harvest power from the human body. The other thing that getting away from battery gets you is the form factor. We can embed it inside clothing because the battery is no longer the limiting size in the platform's requirements.
This clean room is where the sensor components are manufactured. Eventually, they will be embedded on low-energy chips. Mehmet Öztürk says comfort is a must.
What we are trying to do is create flexible energy harvesters that go on the human body. So the goal is essentially rely on heat and motion to generate all the electrical energy we need so that we can power our devices.
The plan is for the device to send data wirelessly to the wearer's cell phone, even to a doctor.
5 to 10 years from now, we would like to see our technologies inside wearable health devices that are really changing the way patients are taking care of their health and also changing the way the doctors prescribe treatments for patients.
So update your wardrobe to improve your health? That's quite a fashion statement. For Science Nation, I'm Miles O'Brien.
Next video also you can run.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
One of the most important things in public speaking is how to keep your mind
Just a minute. Is it okay, ma'am?
Yeah. Yes.
There's a revolution coming in the way that disease is detected and treated. And I think that these sensors are going to be a really critical part of that revolution.
This will actually be something that you can put on your body itself. So it is flexible, kind of like a bandage that you can put on your arm, on your back. There are some applications that are even looking into making this sort of like a contact lens, and it will give us an early warning signal for some health consequence that is arising, whether it's, some type of genetic disease, a heart attack, a cancer early alert system, something that will give us time to know something's not quite right in the body and have time for the doctors to catch it and hopefully correct it.
It takes both very sensitive materials to make the sensor and molecules that are selective, that can detect that one molecule amidst a sea of many, many other molecules. We developed a process where we can take an ultra-thin film of a single material, and we can process this on a flexible polymer substrate. And we use a laser to write these different circuit elements on the surface of a polymer. We attach biomolecules to these surfaces to enable sensing of different molecular biomarkers, chemicals your body generates or releases.
So we can add specific antibodies which will target one molecule of interest that we can then pick up and sense in the parts per million or even potentially parts per billion.
This is just a big leap forward in making that technology more accessible, more comfortable to wear, and just a more kind of everyday part of our life.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, 2 videos we have seen how wearable sensors can be used for one second. For early disease detection. So one from North Carolina State University and the other from the University of Dayton. So now a breakthrough application is breast tissue screening for diagnosis of breast cancer because that is an alarming number if you see here. So the first warning systems breast tissue screening bra to assist in the breast self-examination. So it will collect the data and send to the internet, and it can be processed with the sophisticated algorithms and displayed to the user. And based on the 3 clinical trials, so this is a reference paper, 90% of accuracy is what they have achieved, and it also predicts tissue abnormalities. So the much scope is there for research in this field, and it is need of the hour also. And you have 5G enabled wearable and implantable devices like cochlear implants and pacemakers, insulin pumps, and you can interface all these wireless sensor devices with 5G, which can be used for biomedical applications. And this is mobile point of care testing wearables. Right, you can have standalone devices like this, or it can be integrated with smartphones, or it can be in the dress, or it can be skin attachable, or it can be implantable, and it can be also like accessories like wristwatches, ring, or a belt that can be connected on the body, so that it will become mobile point of care testing wearable, which will be the data whichever is collected from all these devices or sensors will be sent to your mobile, or sent to the doctor's mobile, or sent to the well-wisher's mobile. Whoever is having the critical ill conditions, they can be, this wearable sensors will be very much helpful. Otherwise, continuous monitoring is necessary. And these are also mobile point of care testing wearables from different companies, right? From Siemens, from Roche. Right, so all the AccuCheck, you can go to these websites and find out what are the users and what is the market. And coming for nano robots, so nano robots also have many built-in nano sensors, and that can be programmed to perform delicate surgeries. Such nano surgeons could work at a level 1,000 times more precise than the sharpest scalpel. By working on such a small scale, a nano robot could operate without leaving the scars that conventional surgery does. And even nano robots can use to change the physical appearance of any human being, and they can also be programmed to perform cosmetic surgery. That is ears, nose, eye color, or any other physical feature we wish to alter. And you have nano robots for theranostics. So a Korean research team has successfully developed bacteria robots that can diagnose and treat cancer. So what actually it is doing is this bacteria-based robot is expected to be utilized to develop new treatments for cancer, and various micro robots or nano robots for medical purposes in the future. They are made up of bacteria and 3 micrometer sized microstructures filled with anti-cancer drugs. And genetically modified non-toxic bacteria will move inside the tissues or blood and find tumors by pushing microstructures and targeting certain drugs secreted by the cancer cells. So upon the arrival of this bacteria robots in the tumor region, this anti-cancer drugs that come from microstructures are spread onto the surface of the tumor. So this research is also going on. And some of the nano diagnostic devices, if you see, you can have lab on a chip. So instead of going to the labs for testing, just you can have like SoC, system on chip, you have lab on the chip. So it will integrate one or more laboratory operation on a single chip. So just we can place our blood or we can place everything. It will in home itself we can get all the data. And drug delivery systems. This is what this targeted drug delivery for oncology is what the hot research topic today. And even we can use gold nanoparticles for theranostics. So if you see, you have this this nanoparticle, and this nanoparticle is loaded with drugs. So this gold nanoparticle with attached antibodies, and this can go inside and out of the cancer cell, and it can without affecting the. That is what very important in cancer therapy. Without affecting the healthy cells, only the cancer cells need to be demolished. And you have magnetic nanoparticles in theranostics. If you see, we are aware of MRI, PET. So that is, and you have this DNA dehybridization, protein cleavage in the molecule recognition scheme. Then still cell stimulation, if you see, thermoresponsiveness, heat, the heat generated in the body can be accessed, and based on that, various diagnoses can be done. So this magnetic nanoparticles can also be used for targeted drug delivery. So you can inject this magnetic nanoparticles, and this magnetic nanoparticles will circulate through the bloodstream, and this is the solid tumor. We can apply this magnetic field to concentrate on these particles, and this will get modulated this to release the drug from the particles to this solid tumor. Now we have seen some of the applications in medicine, but it spans many areas. Nanotechnology spans many areas, not only in medicine, in energy, in automobiles, in various industries, and in computer and information technology, and also in defense and cosmetics, agriculture, environment, textiles, sports, aerospace, oil and gas. So if you see, each one is a very big ocean, medical and nanomedicine. So if you take only anti-cancer drugs, so you can use gold nanoparticles, you can use magnetic nanoparticles, right? You can have the drugs directly delivered to the, so much research, and we need sensors, we need processors, we need signal processing, we need communication. So everything is very, very important in all these fields, even though that's what it is an interdisciplinary course. Just an electronics engineer cannot work on nano, or just by knowing physics, we cannot do any research or develop any design or anything. So if you take nanotechnology in textiles, so you have strain resistant, waterproof, wrinkle resistant, antibacterial, radiation absorbency properties. You can make it waterproof. You can make ultraviolet protection. So much scope is available in textiles. That smart shirt is what now they are designing, so that if we wear, everything will be monitored. All our physiological parameters can be monitored by embedding sensors into that smart shirts. And nanotechnology in automobiles, if you see, so much of sensors are available in an automobile. And the world's first commercial nanotechnology based solid lubricant declared non-toxic. It is declared as non-toxic. And aerospace components with enhanced performance characteristics, dust-free mirrors used in recent Nissan cars, fog-free glass windows for cars, carbon atoms, right, which is 6 times lighter than steel, stronger materials, 100 times strength to weight ratio. If you take, so like this, nanotechnology is used in automobiles for various functions. And nanotechnology in food. And it can be used in industries, right? Better insulation materials, low cost, tougher and harder cutting tools. But the tool will be very small, but it will be tougher, and it can be used for huge applications. Lightweight, high strength materials. That is what very important. Faster, better, cheaper, and space transportation with nanotube. We know that if you take a space vehicle, it is very time consuming, and also it involves huge money. So they say that we can do space transportation with nanotubes, which will be faster, better, and cheaper. So as we know, all of us being electronics engineers, we know Moore's law, decrease in size and increase in density. So that is what happening. So faster and smaller non-silicon based chipsets, which can be used for memory and processors, biosensors. And nanotechnology in defense, if we apply for DRDO, they ask for that is lightweight, because in borders, if you see the soldiers, that is what one DRDO scientist was talking to us on. They wear very heavy weight dresses, right? So they have to. That's what they're asking. Using this nanotechnology in textiles, will it be possible to design a fabric or design a smart shirt? Right, which will have less weight, but it will withstand cold. So there is all new avenues for research in nanotechnology in textile, which can be used in military defense. And nanotechnology in cosmetics. So nanocrystalline sunscreen, nanospheres for cosmetics, nano gold anti-aging creams. And if you see nanotechnology in sporting goods, carbon-based nanomaterials are the second most common nanoscale materials found in consumer products. It is light because of its lightweight, high strength, electrical and thermal conductivity. This carbon-based nanomaterials are used. And nanotechnology-based power cell technology will address power needs in defense, industrial, and consumer electronics. High energy density batteries with low weight, less weight, but more power. And nanocomputers with molecular machines will allow almost anything to be designed and made from inexpensive raw materials such as air, sunlight, or even dirt. Now, if you see this COVID, that is what very important in this coronavirus pandemic. While many parts of the world remain in lockdown and most of the universities are closed, but however, numerous nanotechnology research labs have been kept open throughout the world in last few months, and they have redirected their efforts towards the development of a vaccine and nano formulations of therapeutics for the treatment of this COVID-19. So some of the research going on for to come out of this COVID-19 pandemic. See, researchers at Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology have developed a filter mask using orthogonal nanofibers. And using protein nanoparticles, and it is in the clinical trial. Diagnostic system for COVID-19 that is intended to provide results at the point of use rather than waiting. So we have to wait for, earlier it was some 3 days, 4 days, now it is I think 1 day. So even that 1 day we need not wait. So like that research is going on, but to what extent that has been accepted is a big question mark, but researches are going on for COVID-19 problems also. Now, if you see nanoscience and nanotechnology, this is the academic survey in 2019, carried out in 2019. If you see, this is top 400 universities in nanoscience and nanotechnology around the world. 5 countries, that is China, US, Germany, South Korea, and United Kingdom. These 5 countries claim that 61% of the world's top 400 nanoscience and nanotechnology universities are there in these 5 countries. So we are around somewhere here. This is this green, yellow is what China, Hong Kong, and this green is India. We are somewhere here. So many, that 400 nanoscience and nanotechnology universities they have taken into the survey, and most of the universities are there in China, US, Germany, China and US only. We can take, if you take the major in China and US only, they have major universities where they work for nanoscience and nanotechnology. And if you see the nanomedicine market growth, that is the industries. So the market growth, this is also according to 2019 survey. So market growth is high across the globe. They have taken market growth is more in these areas, and it is medium in this regions, and it is low in these regions. And these regions are not taken into consideration, or they have not done. They are not doing anything. We have to check. And nanomedicine, if you see, this is also 2019 survey, mostly for cardiovascular diseases, oncology, and neurological diseases. The nanomedicine market is concentrating on. And just 5 minutes about our department and our nanotechnology research facilities. Our college, we started in 1951, and our department was started in 1968. And we have 1 BE program and 4 PG programs, in which we have MTech Nanoscience and Technology. It is initiated in the year 2010. And this is the course curriculum generally. And the research, what we have done, actually, we have MTech Nanoscience and Technology, and we have only 3 faculty, out of which 2 of them belong to, they have done their nano science program in their undergraduate. 1 senior professor belongs to ECE only. So we have only 3 persons for nanotechnology in our department. One Dr. Aragappan, he has developed the gold nanoparticles cholesterol biosensor electrode. So he has developed this, and he has fabricated this, and he has tested this, and he has given this for clinical trials. More in detail, I'm not going into it because I have not worked in, I have not done any research in nanotechnology or nanosensors. And this has been published in Arabian Journal of Chemistry, Elsevier journal. So this is what, this is his PhD work, and he has completed this. And this is the workflow, it is given by him. So what he has done, preparation of gold nanoparticles coated, functionalized multi-wall carbon nanotubes, and coating of this on the glassy carbon electrode. This is what step by step he has given. This is the research cholesterol sensor. Actually, this is called as the cholesterol, nano-based cholesterol sensor. And he has also developed a chamber, indigenously developed a chamber for bilayer lipid membrane-based non-enzymatic electrochemical cholesterol biosensor. So this is the chamber indigenously developed by Dr. Aragappan from our department. And he has got the first 3 projects is by Dr. Alagappan, and 2 projects have been completed. And 1 project, design and development of a reusable electrochemical sensor for blood flow cholesterol monitoring with smartphone for cardiovascular disease prevention. It is an ongoing project. This project has got sanctioned only in the January 2020. So it is an ongoing project. And 1 more faculty I told you, she is doing research on magnetic micromixer for biomedical applications. She is also a nano faculty. Only 2 faculty we have for our nano, and the remaining subjects are handled by the from PhD Tech Nano Center. So we have a nanotechnology research, innovation and incubation center, which is called as PhD Tech Nano Center, and it belongs to PSG IAS, PSG Institute of Advanced Studies. And the director for this PSG IAS and director for this PSG Tech Nano Center Research Center is Dr. P. Radhakrishnan. This Nano Center is the brainchild of Dr. Radhakrishnan. It is funded by National Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Development Board and Department of Science and Technology. And this was inaugurated by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam on 30/8/2009. And this is what the center, PSG Nanotech Center, dedicated to the nation by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam on 13th August 2009. And he says that nanotechnology is knocking at our doors. It is the field of the future that will replace microelectronics and many fields with tremendous application potential in the areas of medicine, electronics, and material sciences. And major thrust areas in this research center belonging to PSG IAS. They work on printed electronics, renewable energy systems, healthcare, and smart textiles. And these are the current areas of research that is being carried out in that research center. Sensors for industrial and biological applications, tissue engineering, nano biomaterials for drug delivery applications, etc. And they have, it is a multidisciplinary expertise, as I told you. Only an electronics engineer or a physics graduate or a doctorate in chemistry will not work out for nanotechnology or nano device development or nano sensor development. It is a multidisciplinary field, and PSG IAS, PSG Institute of Advanced Studies, in that research center, in the PSG Tech Nano Research Center. Here you can see PSG Nanotechnology Research Innovation and Incubation Center. They have multidisciplinary expertise, right? They have physics graduates, they have physics, chemistry doctorates, and biotechnology and biology also. Then they have electronics, they have textiles. So it is a they have everybody here in this group. 14 research faculty are available. So as I told you, our MTech program, only 2 faculty, the allotted faculty for according to ACT is 3 faculty for one MTech program. So 2 faculty we have, but all the subjects cannot be handled by them. So this 14 research faculty from this research center, they will be handling, for example, she is Bindu Salim, she is handling one subject this semester for our MTech Nano students through online from US. She is in US now, she is handling through online. And this madam, Biju madam, she is also handling one subject, and Selva Kumar, he is handling one subject for our laboratory for our nanotech students. And we have 54 research scholars working in this area in the Nanotech Research Center. And in this last 10 years, they have got around 35 funded research projects, which goes to about the tune of 10 crores. And they have state-of-art multi-speciality laboratories. And what are the laboratories they have? Hybrid solar energy laboratory, nano characterization laboratory, electrochemical energy material laboratory, sensor development laboratory. So nano research at PSG IAS, they have the state-of-art facilities for carrying out research in all these areas. And these are some of the major equipments and facilities available in the PSG Tech Nano Research Center. And some of the technologies and products developed by the PSG Tech Nano Research Center, ammonia gas sensor, which is used for breath analysis. It is developed by Dr. Biji, and it is used for healthcare. So like that, so many sensors and products are developed, and it is available for entrepreneurs. So the developed technology can be transferred to, they are working on that, it will be transferred to an industry for further production. So as industrial revolution, a nanotechnology revolution will occur in all fields. So it is not confined only to medical or electronics or to healthcare or to aero or space or energy. So it is going to rule the world in near future. So we'll have nanotechnology in our everyday life in future. So the unbounding future, it is not bounded. So you have good research scope for nanosciences and nanotechnology for different applications. But however, so whatever I've told you is all in the test phase. Whether it is to be applied, because medical, if you take, we have to get approval from various agencies, and finally it is to be applied on the human being. So research is going on in that direction. And if everything, whatever we have discussed, research is going on, and some are implemented in some hospitals or universities in abroad, not in India. It has a very good future, and much research is going on in this area. So these are some of the references I've taken for preparing these slides. So thank you. So actually, I have not done any, I have not shared any of my research experiences because my area of research is different from this. Since we have nanotechnology course, and to a certain extent, I've done some basic study of nanotechnology and its application, because I've worked something in the medical biomedical signal processing and biomedical device development. So I thought how it can be used for nano electrodes. See, for my EEG, wireless EEG recorder, I need some nano electrodes, whether it is possible. That's what I was discussing with our nano faculty, research faculty in our research center. So I'm not shared any of my research experiences in this because it is a growing field, and whoever has done research can talk on the research. If anybody is interested to use our research facility, which is available in our nano center, so you can contact me. I'll get you connected to our director, Dr. P. Radhakrishnan, or the faculty, research faculty working over there. So I think I have done some justice on. Just I've taken you through a tour of nano, starting from nanotechnology till what will be the future of nanotechnology in various fields, rather than not only on medicine. So it has scope in almost all fields. And it has good research scope. So our MTech nanotechnology students, if you see, they get good placements. They get good internships. All our nanotechnology students get good internships in research labs. So research is what, but the placement is a challenge for them. But they get good research opportunities like junior research fellow, senior research fellow. So two of our students have got internship in US, but they can't go because of this pandemic. Otherwise, they would have gone. So thank you. Any other clarifications or any things you can ask?
Thank you, ma'am, for such a valuable session. We got an insight of various nano wearable sensors that is used in healthcare industry. Participants, any queries or any discussions with ma'am? Ma'am is available. One question in the chat box, which I have seen, ma'am. I'll just scroll. Is the wearable socks indigenously developed one? How it can be fabricated?
Pardon?
Is the wearable socks indigenously developed one? How it can be fabricated, ma'am?
No, actually, you're asking about our research, that socks.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Your socks only, ma'am.
Yeah. Actually, that is they have an industry partner. That industry, along with that industry partner, they have all the facilities, whatever necessary for designing and developing and fabrication, we have in our nano research center. So they are doing that in their in that center itself, in that center of excellence, whatever we have. But there is an industry tie-up for that, because the socks and the sensors and the particles, whatever is necessary, need to be embedded into that socks. So that is taken care by that's why we have an industry partner for that. One Dr. Amitava is working on that.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So any other questions? Because to the micro level or nano level, I can't answer your queries because I have not worked in. Because if we work in that area, then I've given an introduction about what is nanotechnology and how it is used in healthcare, and some insight into the biosensors and wearable sensors. But it is quite an interesting field. It took a lot of time for me to prepare these slides. all from web I've used, and some information our nanotechnology faculty also has given me. But it's a very quite interesting area, and many research avenues are available for this area, especially in the biomedical field. But if it comes through, then definitely there'll be a revolution in medicine, in medical field, in terms of diagnosis, in terms of therapy, all those things. Because we have very challenging biomedical applications. For example, that's why much research in the world is being concentrated on the drug delivery for cancer cells, that cancer therapy. So much we can do very good research. But the one thing is it should be interdisciplinary. So you will be having physics department faculty, you will be having chemistry department faculty. So if you take, that's why they have all faculty members, they join together and they work on that particular project. So being just electronics engineer or electrical engineer, if we apply for one project, that's why they have got 35 projects. Our Nanotechnology Research Center, they have got 35 projects, research projects funded by various agencies, government agencies in the past 10 years. So 2009 only we started that research center. Now we are in 2020. So in that we have got around 35 projects, means because they work, they have all expertise. They have the person who know physics, about the materials, because all equal contribution of various disciplines is what essential for doing research in nanotechnology. That's what I understood by discussing with our faculty, our research faculty. Thank you for your patience. Thank you.
Ma'am, excellent collection of information, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah, if there are no queries, we'll be finding up this session. Ma'am, thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable presence and sharing your experiences with us. Very informative.
I will share this PPT, and below that I've given most of the PPTs. I think more than 75% of my slides I've given the references, right?
Yes,
you can, if anybody is interested in any topic, you can go to that reference. You will get a very detailed explanation about the slide, whatever I projected.
Yeah, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you for your patience. Thank you all for attending this session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Gomati?
Yes, ma'am.